Okay, everyone. Thank you for hopping back in. Hopefully everyone else is making their way back as well. Okay, starting to get back to where we started before. So we got kicked off, I think, somewhere right into our talk about page layouts. And I'll just kind of go slowly for a minute, review where we were before, and hopefully everyone else can get back on and we can just pick right back up. So we were talking about page layouts, and the default is that each profile only gets one page layout per object, one page layout per object. Meaning, if I'm this person, if I'm a sales user, and I have a customer account layout, that's the only layout I ever see when I look at an account record. And if I'm a consulting user and I have a partner layout, that's the only layout I ever see if I'm looking at an account record. But what if sometimes the sales user needs to look at the partner account layout, or sometimes the consulting user needs to look at the customer layout? Well, that's one place where record types can come in. Here's what I want you to remember about record types. Record types give you two benefits: the ability to offer different page layouts and different pick list values. Okay, ability to offer different page layouts and different pick list values. And I should say and or, because sometimes you use a record type primarily to get to the different page layout. Sometimes you use it primarily to get to offer different pick list values. It's flexible. You can choose how it works for you. And again, it can be used for different business scenarios. In this example, we have a customer account record type and a partner account. They're both managed with accounts, but there's slightly different information that we need to track in each of these scenarios. So for customer accounts, let's look at this industry pick list field and look at all the values: agriculture, apparel, banking, biotech. But for our partner accounts, it's just consulting and education. So this is the same field, but we are using different record types to surface different pick list values to our end users. So at my old company, I mentioned we used opportunities for sales deals, but also to track upcoming enrollments. You might use it for opportunities for business to business versus business to consumer. Again, slightly different scenarios, still using the same object. When you create record types, there is kind of some prep work you have to do. So if I'm offering different page layouts, I need to create those first. Then I want to make sure my pick list fields, so my industry field in this example, that my pick list fields have all of the available values to use in the record types. And then you're able to create your record type. Now, when you create a record type, you make it available for profiles. And this part can be a bit confusing. So let me actually show this in my org as well for some existing record types that we have. So I'll go to my object manager. I know I have them for opportunities. I'm looking at my record type. So let's look at my B2C, my business to consumer sales. And this one I want to, oh, you know what? I can't go back and edit. This is this is something I always forget every time when I'm controlling who it's available for profiles. If I want to edit it after the fact, I have to do that on the profile. It's a step I almost always forget. So we'll say I'm creating a new record type for opportunities. When I make it available for profiles, what this is saying is that users of this profile can create records of this type. That's all it's saying. It's really important to know, coming back to our security and access, that record types in and of themselves do not control access to records. So if a user can see all accounts, they can still see all accounts regardless of the record type. Making available just says users of this profile can create records of this type. And again, the thing I always forget, you always have to go back to the profile itself, kind of like we saw in object settings, if you want to make a record type available for a profile. Here's my exam tip as it relates to record types. There may be times when having two separate page layouts will take care of what you need. So you never want to make something more complex than a situation necessitates. So if I have a scenario where my sales users only ever need to see a customer layout and consulting users only ever need to see the partner layout, and there's never any crossover, there's never a need for different pick list values, well, page layouts will take care of it. Each profile can have their own page layout. But if you ever have crossover, sales user ever needs to see the consulting layout or vice versa, that's when you definitely need record types. And especially if you ever have to offer different pick list values, you always need record types. So my advice is to pay attention to the type of field in the question and see if it sounds like a pick list field. And if it sounds like a pick list field, and it sounds like you have to offer different pick list values, that is talking about having different record types. Now we're going to layer on to this because there are certain objects that require something special, something additional to work hand in hand with a record type. You see those listed up here: opportunities, cases, solutions, and leads. Now, solutions are just in classic. Solutions are like resolutions to cases. We have knowledge now. So most people, even if they're in classic, are still using knowledge. But solutions is one of these that would have a business process. For the lightning ones, how I remember the lightning objects that require a business process is I remember LOC, L-O-C. And that stands for leads, opportunities, and cases, LOC. These three objects require a business process before I can create a record type for these objects. And these business processes are built on special fields. They're built on your life cycle fields, your stage field, your status field. Those are your life cycle fields. And they're life cycle fields because they represent the different steps that a record would go through in its life cycle. So for these business process is the general term. For opportunities, it's called a sales process. Cases, it's called a support process. Leads, it's called a lead process. So they named it right after the object for leads. So when might I use this? Let me pull open a different virtual whiteboard that I use to represent this. Let's say, like we have in our org, let's say we sell business to business as well as business to consumer. And if we sell business to business, let's say we're selling computers or other electronics. In business to business, those opportunities probably go through a number of stages: prospecting, some qualification, you do a needs analysis, there's a value proposition, there's a quote, maybe some negotiation. But what if you go into Best Buy and you're just looking to purchase a laptop? There are probably only a few stages that might go through. You're probably not going to do a full value proposition, a price quote. This is probably all happening quite quickly and doesn't require changes to stage. Maybe there's initial contact, a quote given, and then you say yes or no, I want to buy it or not. So for B2B, these different stages are defined with one sales process. B2C, this is defined with a separate sales process. And then these sales processes, which are actually created outside of the record type, are referenced when you create the record type. So here is my new opportunity record type I'm trying to create. You'll notice that sales process is a required field. So if I don't create this ahead of time, I'm kind of stuck here. I have to go back into setup, I have to quick find sales process, and I have to create it in order to create a record type. Now, you don't always need it to be one-to-one. So maybe one sales process will work for multiple record types, What you do need is, at a minimum, at least one sales process before you can create a record type for these 3 objects. And one more time, in Lightning, those are leads, opportunities, and cases. Require a business process before you can create a record type for these objects. Field level security. Coming back to this topic that we touched on earlier. Field level security controls 2 things. Can a user see the field? Can they edit the field? That is it. Who can see it? Who can edit? It controls the user's total access to the field. And this is something that I can control or I can edit on the field itself. So if you create a new field and you go through the field setup wizard, it says, okay, who do you want to see it? Who do you want to edit? Or I can do it on the profile itself under object settings. So regardless of where I edit, it still applies both places. It's still controlled by a user's profile, just kind of 2 different ways to go about editing it. Some admins or some people might think, if I don't want Matt Wilson over here to see this field, to see this credit status field, I'll just go ahead and pull it off of the page layout. And that prevents him from seeing the field on the page layout, but it doesn't necessarily remove his total access to the field. So if I just pull it off the page layout, he might still find it other places, maybe on related lists, maybe in search results or reports or list views. Now these options, he might have to put a little bit more work into finding it, but he still would have access to the field. But if I take it away with field level security, he cannot see it, he cannot edit. It's as though the field does not exist to Matt, and he wouldn't find it anywhere. So again, controls who can see the field, who can edit for my field level security. And that brings it back to what our last topic, our last step we talked about was in our security and access model. Before we move into our next lesson, I'm just going to double check the group. Looks like we have most everyone back on. Just make sure that everyone's able to jump back on. Cool. And it looks like operations is in there, responding to everyone. Okay. Looking good, everyone. So what we might do, let me think about our timing. I think we're doing fine on